Thanks to Jerry, we have space tonight to consider the ways that friendship and the social prompt and agitate literary and artistic production, and to consider storytelling and poetry as methods that hold community together. Jerry's generous and loving maneuver to stage a homecoming for Michael both enacts the claims of Jerry's literary community work and holds them up for discussion and celebration. So thank you, Jerry, for this collaboration. And for, it's just been a total pleasure to have you as our first archival fellow. You've made an incredible impact on our thinking and feeling in the dreams of literary homemaking. So let's start the celebration and give some love to Jerry and the panelists. So bringing up to the stage Jerry Thompson, Jeneé Darden, Ajuan Mance, Nancy Cato, and Michael Ross. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. No. All right. It's all his fault, right here. Michael Ross, all his fault. So I have to say, first and foremost, I want to acknowledge the staff and board of Small Press Traffic. They're amazing. They've invited me in to take a look at the archives. I spent hours at the archives going through every bin, every pamphlet, every poetry collection. And I think one of the goals for me being a part of the archive is to fill in those spots, bring some black folks, some brown folks, some other folks, and to fill the house with new energy. People who have lived and created in San Francisco for decades, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I found so many neighborhoods, so many homes, so many stories, so many faces, so many moments that connect all of us. When we were talking about creating an event about a year ago, the first thing that came to mind was, well, I'm going to call Michael Ross because he needs to come to the Bay for a visit, and I think that, for one, he embodies, well, home for me. When I first came to San Francisco back in 1800s. No, sorry. Oh, I have to say this. Michael and I were on the phone recently, and we were talking about, oh yeah, I shaved everything off. I was like, yeah, I got my dye, gray gone. So, and he says, oh yeah, gray gone. So when I saw him today, I'm like, we're good. The dye has about 44 more minutes before it starts going gray again. But anyway, so I figured I built this visit, and I was selfishly motivated. I wanted to see him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to say hello and to spend time with him because for me, he represents my Bay Area family. And so when he and I talked about scheduling the event, whew, it took a few minutes because he was like, oh, I've got to come back. And I know many of you have gone to see Michael over the years, and I wasn't jealous, but I'm like, damn, you get to see Michael Ross. And so I figured, how could we bring him back and make it a part of a larger community event that we're all connected with? Our home in San Francisco is based on writers and stories and storytelling and art. And so, I wanted to build out the conversation with the folks who I know that knew and know Michael Ross, Ajuan Mance, great artist, Nancy Cato, this one over here. And of course, to celebrate the amazing work that Michael Ross has created over the years, I will share one more thing before I go into my intro. That wasn't the intro? No. Well, Michael and I go back so far, sorry. He has created logos and the art for everything I keep wanting to cry about this. Everything I've done in my life. From the Sister Circle at Alexander Book Company, he created that logo, right? Oh my gosh. And then, I have it all written down here. The Sister Circle Book Awards. What? You got a t-shirt, Nancy, right? Then when I opened my first bookstore in Vallejo, he created the logo for the bookstore. Incredible. There's something else here too. The Rhythm River Poetry, I can't even say it. The Rhythm River Poetry series, which was based on the visit by a poet named Lucille Clifton, and we spent the whole year building that event. And Michael's art, which we still have, symbolized the flow of energy and spirit and connection and love for her and for all those who created poetry in the Bay Area. It was the final event. We had a party at my house when I still lived in San Francisco, and Marvin, who I can't believe Marvin Gaye White's here. We were all at the house having fried chicken and Lucille. But anyway, all because of the root of the energy and love that Michael Ross created. It was like, for me, the knot at the end of the thread, the knot for me. Thank you for being here, Michael. Fucking love you, man. So we're gonna have this, and also, so to top it off, to have like the magic put on the conversation, I could not think of anyone else to invite my other sister, Jeneé Darden, who over the past year and a half, we've become, I don't know, incestuously crazy connected. She's the host of Sights and Sounds on KALW, phenomenal show. She just got her own show, right, recently. So that aired last week. And she's going to put the spell on the conversation and like just add the gravy to the flow of what they'll talk about tonight. I wrote an intro poem, which I will share with you right now, and then they will get to it. Thank you all for being here. And the poem goes like this. Yeah, it's called Day Trippin' with Small Press Traffic. Welcome home, Michael, Ajuan, Nancy, and Jeneé. We're sitting at the table of a crunchy, fried, and greasy day. That's right, we're on the way down memory lane through all kinds of small press traffic, all kinds of history between what we created and what we tried not to say, turning right onto the red of quilts and poems, on paper-made cartoons and blues for the illustrated black men on pages, twisted with sweet song and preachers, amen. Godfathers, uncles, little brothers who have recently transitioned, amen. Family repositioned with made-up stories by Entezaki, Nikki Giovanni, and Ishmael Reed, amen. Say it again. Ishmael Reed ain't mad no more, because we're about to boogie down on that last drop of every sister soul dropping like it's hot for the soul of Wanda Coleman. Like a trip through the mission with thoughts of Jewel Gomez, kissing the notes from Marlon Riggs and images to shine in this conversation. So it's a welcome home, Michael, Ajuan, and Nancy, and Jeneé. We're gonna try to pretend we're sitting at your kitchen table, passing the time away, sipping sweet tea, talking about survival like friends, family at a Soul Tether revival. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeneé Darden, Ajuan Mance, Michael Ross, and Nancy Cato.
Thank you for the poem, Jerry, and welcome home to you too, Jerry. Jerry, you opened the home to us, so we thank you and welcome home, everybody. Welcome to this great event. Welcome back, welcome home, Michael Ross too as well. It was so nice. I was kind of like in the back and I was peeking my head out and just seeing how people were hugging you that hadn't seen you in a long time. So just to see that beautiful reunion and fellowship, I was touched by it as well. I want to start with, since we're talking about home and this feels like a reunion, and I was telling Jerry, like, part of me feels like that kid that sitting at the table. I grew up as an only child, and so like when my mom and my aunts would get together, I would sit at the table and just be quiet, just to hear, everything, and then I would like drop a question, and they'd be like, "You listening?" And I'm like, "No." So I kind of feel like that too as well. So just don't kick me off the table when I have a question. But I want to know how all three of you crossed paths, how you all met.
Well, I don't know if I met you on my own or through Jerry. I'm not sure. But I just recall knowing that you worked at Patrick's. I was a messenger downtown, And that's how I met Jerry from the Sister Circle, just stumbling in.
And make sure you hold the mic up to you. So.
Oh yeah, so that's how I believe I met you, just strolling into Patrick's. And I didn't believe that he would be the second black person that I met downtown. So I was, coming from the East Coast, I was very excited to meet you and Jerry, and that kind of set it off for me. Yeah.
Well, Nancy, I think as I think about it, I do vaguely kind of remember that we met at that time, but I know that when we got to know each other and to know each other's work and to talk about each other's work, we were both members of an arts collective. And yes, 3.9 Arts Collective. We do have some of the founders of that collective here tonight in our presence. So, and that was a really game changer for me, meeting other artists in San Francisco. It's a San Francisco-based, it was at that time a San Francisco-based art collective. Ajuan, I remember meeting you, if I'm right, we were both in an art exhibition, a part of Afro Solo, Afro Solo annual arts festival. I talked with the founder of Afro Solo this afternoon. I didn't get a chance to, he didn't get a chance to be here, but we did talk a little bit, Thomas Simpson. And I think that's, and it's very impactful that I remember, as I say, us getting to know each other's work in 3.9, and Ajuan and I getting to know each other's work, various other times after, having being in that initial exhibition together.
Good memory. Yeah, everything I know about black arts in the Bay Area I learned from being in shows. And so that's how I met you, Nancy. I met your work first, and my jaw dropped, and I just thought, wow, the quality of line and the themes, like, this is great stuff. And then I actually got a chance to meet you. And I think it was a show at, I think it was at the African American Art and Culture Complex. Yeah. And then, of course, as you said, Michael, we met in exhibitions and things like that. Yeah.
I don't mean to be a diva, but my mama just texted me. She said she can't see me. I'm sorry. She told me, I'm so sorry. She just texted me. She was like, I can't see your face. Can you move to the other seat? So while I get up to do that, before I get up to do that, and I'm hearing all of you talk about these places that you met, and you're coming from the East Coast, you're from the South, I know because
Southern born, East Coast raised.
Right, okay, I know you got like different coasts. And I want to talk too about like finding a creative home here, finding a creative home in San Francisco as, black queer artists. What was your like artistic inspirations as far as coming here? And as you talk about that, I'm gonna get up and just move behind you. So, and I'm gonna listen. This I've never done this before. Who wants to go first? Sorry, I done shook up everything.
So you're speaking of artistic inspiration, coming here.
And finding an arts home here in the Bay Area. And what era was this? Was this like the 80s? Or?
Yeah.
That's okay.
We're going to tell on ourselves. Yeah, I came here. I moved here in, if I remember, 1988. So, I landed here. I didn't really know, I don't think I knew anyone so much, but I started to meet people. it's significant what Jerry said. I met Jerry. I immediately landed a job at Patrick and Company, the big stationery store that you were speaking of, and Jerry was actually a customer of mine, and he would come and buy office supplies, and then we connected. We would always talk, and we became friends. And then I think, if I remember Jerry, he said that, there was a new bookstore opening, Alexander Book, and he was like, I'm going to work there. He's like, I'm going to work there. And before I knew it, you were working there. And I mentioned that significantly because, and I start with Jerry because as Jerry started to work at Alexander Book downtown in the financial district, he created all of these programs, authors visiting, I guess you would call it, events, programs. And I will tell you, a lot of the people that are in this room, or that are actually in my heart, if they're not in this room, I met through Jerry, because people would come by and say hi to him. It was kind of like, I don't know, I guess you could call it a cheers. Like after work, people who worked in the financial district would go by and say hi, and we would see each other and say hi. And a lot of people I met through him, and those included a lot of artists, writers, poets, singers, I would say many are here tonight. I think that was a start. And then there were people that I got to know, and all of those folks tended to inspire me. I mean, there was one time as I was just saying to someone, I did a group of, I was doing some art, showing it to Jerry. Jerry sometimes he wrote poems and showed them, to me. And one time I had an exhibition, and he had written some poems about the work, and he read at that exhibition. I mean, we were very young, so it was just really exciting. I was even working at, I don't know how to say things except sort of Southern stories. Is that okay? So I'm telling stories. But I will say just one more thing. Okay. I think that it felt like a lot of the various artists in my own contemporary age were inspiring me, and that was first. And then I started to meet and to know of the work of others, like Jerry mentioned, Jewel Gomez, who's just delightful. I mean, you think of Jewel as this well-known writer, but she can just come and talk to you. Just just stand up and talk to you, sit in the room and talk to you, just like nothing, like she's never published a book or anything, she just, and very, very inspiring. Marvin K. White, once I was working at Patrick's, and he just surprised me and showed up with, I think it's one of those books that have the little plastic spiral, and it was I guess you call it the manuscript of his next book that he was going to publish, and it was just a little inscription there. I still have that at home. I mean, wow. I just say, wow. What else can you say? So those are some of the people, and a lot of the folks that I'm mentioning, they helped me to learn about other artists who may not be Bay Area artists, or maybe may not, but it was a journey to learn of other Black artists, other queer artists, other people who are well known, and so forth. And these are the folks who would tell me about people, and I would tell them about people, and then we learn, and that's kind of what I think. So
Yeah.
And this is what brought us here from...
Yeah, what brought you here, and being inspired here as an artist and building your creative arts community here. Yeah.
Well, I came to the Bay Area from to be an English professor. And I had my previous job at the University of Oregon. I was there for about 4 years, and I really wanted to be in a place with more diversity, greater population density. I grew up on Long Island, going to New York on weekends for family trips, and I just needed a little bit more than I could get up in Eugene, Oregon. And I had just, I spent a lot of time in grad school doing English, African American literature, but it wasn't until I'd been a professor for a year that I realized that some of the key questions I wanted to explore, I couldn't do with literature. I needed to explore that with visual art. So I was about 3 or 4 years into a serious art practice when I moved here. And so when I saw in the East Bay Express that there was something called Open Studios for Black people, I just got the map out and was like, we've got to go to some of these studios. And, then, having grown up going to field trips in at the New York galleries and museums, it always felt so inaccessible, this thing that, gosh, I wish I could be one of those people one day. And I've had the diametric opposite experience here. The community has been so welcoming and open, and, if you say you're an artist, you're an artist. And so, once if I was willing to show up, put my work up, get things in on the deadline, then I could be part of the art community. And it's been a really wonderful experience. Some people I've known for now almost 25 years because we've been in shows together for 25 years in organizations, and so it's been a real pleasure to find your people, going to these exhibitions, and everything that anyone would say about Black communities, the arts community here breaks all of those things. It's open, it's welcoming, it's accepting across classes and diasporic homes, Afro-Caribbean, African, African-American, and, very queer-friendly, I have found throughout as well. And so this has really been, I feel like the Bay Area has been a great place to be a Black artist and find community. Yeah.
I didn't know you got here in '88. I got here in '89. I wanted to come here for the earthquake to help clean up the place. That didn't work out. But it's interesting because when I got here, I didn't know I was gay. So that kind of stalled things a little bit on the LGBTQ front, when you mentioned that. So I got here, and I wanted to, everybody in New Haven, where I come from, was talking about San Francisco. We got to go to San Francisco. There's arts in San Francisco. And so that's how I ended up in San Francisco. I think I had a trip first to San Francisco, and I spent, when I graduated, and then I was like, oh, it's nice, but I only went to the Wharf, so it's not like the Wharf was an experience. But, and so I went back home, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to move to San Francisco, because I saw San Francisco. And so my uncle was very much into me leaving New Haven and coming here. And he was very supportive. But when I got here, I just realized that the learning curve was much higher, you know what I mean? As far as graphic designers, artists, and stuff like that. And my uncle was tired of paying for my rent, so I needed to get a job. And so that's where I became a messenger downtown. And art got put on the back burner for me. So I don't think I really met artists proper, probably like many other artists, through 3.9. You know what I mean? That's when I started meeting a lot of artists, but one by one, people in 3.9 along the ways, I had shows and things of that nature. But for the most part, I would say that I was just exploring San Francisco and finding myself in all different, you know what I mean, ways. So I didn't get into the art thing until much, much later. Some people I did greeting cards, mostly greeting cards for family back home that wasn't staying in touch with me, so they were kind of angry greeting cards. Okay. But they, you know what I mean? They were still greeting cards, and people were like, "Oh my God, you should make these for everybody." And I was just like, "Oh, okay."
Like angry greeting cards.
Because everybody was angry to their family, you know what I mean? They had telephones with cobwebs on them. That's what we used to. So that's kind of where I got my start, and I was encouraged to do that, to get into greeting cards and do more of my thing.
Okay. And you mentioned 3.9 for people who don't know what 3.9 is.
It was a collective. I mean, I don't know. Is 3.9 still up? Yeah, it's still active. Yeah, okay. See, 3.9.
It's an arts
But
collection.
3.9 was the amount of black people that were in San Francisco at the time.
Oh, the population.
The population. I don't know what it is now. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
4.0. So yeah, anyway.
And speaking of which, I'm also this theme of home, and you all, again, coming from different places, coming here to the Bay Area. So many people that live in the Bay Area are transplants here, and you kind of mentioned this one about the diaspora, about carrying home, and black people historically, we have a history, especially black people here in America, of movement because we were forced out of off the continent, came here, our ancestors. We're thinking, you're talking about the percentage of black people in San Francisco, gentrification. I'm also thinking too about maybe people who have experienced homophobia and they had to leave home and come here. How do you carry, and then Michael, you were here, you've lived other places and you moved, now you're in Florida. How do you carry home and your artistic home with you as you go, as you move about, as you migrate?
That's interesting. I think, Jeneé, sometimes the art practice itself, I will say, I don't know if that's a sort of a cop-out, but the art practice itself is a unifying thing, like home. Sometimes when I'm making the work, it's a space where all of the emotions, all of the everything, all of the influences that have come to me. I think that making the work is home. Some people might know that the images in my work, some people who've known me for a while, like for the last 25 years or so, I'm always doing images of houses, like literally houses on top of people's heads, houses on the backs of people carrying houses with roots coming out of them and people carrying them. And the houses feel like people to me, but the houses are somehow maybe just something that I'm trying to put on, most of the time, paper or in fabric, that it's the art practice to me is home. And my friend and fellow artist Ramachan often sometimes asks me, like, why, like what, I remember Ramachan asking me, like, why do you do the art? What is it? We get in these conversations, like, why do you do it? And I tried to think, and I was like, it's freedom. It's freedom. So the freedom to complete freedom to be whoever I want to be, manipulate the materials and all of that, that is kind of a unifying thing, I think, for me in movement, because it's easy to miss people, to remember the routine that I had that I can't really have anymore.
Yeah.
But the making the work, it really is. That is a unifying sort of factor in home. And sometimes I think maybe, like Nancy, I don't know that I haven't sent angry cards, but I've tried to send cards to keep connected, Yeah, so yeah, I guess, yeah. And maybe there's a little bit of, anger in there. Maybe it's a little passive aggressive for me or something. But yeah, but just making the way, when I can feel that I'm touching brush to paper, a pencil, to paper, needle, to fabric, chisel, to wood, it really does. It does make it feel like it's something that that not only gathers all my thoughts and feelings, and I think about my friends, but another thing I'll just say briefly is just I even imagine ancestors, and specifically when I went back for those 5 years, about 7 years ago, I went back to Mississippi, and for 5 years I lived there in the house where I grew up. So, but think about ancestors.
The house his dad built.
Yes.
Yeah. My father, they built it. It needs a little bit of love, but it's my father built it with his own hands, and so I'm surrounded by it. And so I sometimes would sit out in the yard and carve wood. That's a very old Southern man thing to do, but and think about, for instance, my grandfather, who I didn't know. I was like, wonder what would he think? What would he think about, this kid that's his grandson that's grown up and, trying to be a middle-aged man in the way that, how do we know how to be that? And this is a man that was born in the 1870s. And I have no idea what his life was like, but, here we are. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes...
No, that makes sense. Beautiful.
The question of home is an interesting one. I moved here because I got a job here. I never thought I would live more than 2 hours drive from Long Island, and here I am. So the question of home is an interesting one. Growing up in a place with, and visiting the South a lot. I saw a lot of black people, and so as I once said in an artist statement, my work comes out of a lifetime of looking at black people. And so, whenever I go back east, either to the South to visit relatives or, to go back to New York as any excuse I can get to see friends or do something art related, there's a part of me that, it feels very familiar. It feels right and familiar in a way. I mean, if you've lived somewhere, your formative years, but it also always affirms to me that in some important ways, I'm not the person that I was when I moved to the West Coast in 95, and then I came to the Bay Area in 99. And even though I think, I miss home, I miss the bagels I like, and I miss that kind of pizza with just enough oil on top, this actually is home to me. And it's always good to go back and feel that nostalgia for the place that I left, but also realizing that I've become accustomed to the expansiveness of being a black queer artist in the Bay Area, all of those things, and the inviting, welcoming, growth mindset-based art community here. All of those things have really become a part of how I expect to move through the world, and so it's always a great reality check that this is. California, Northern California feels normal to me, not in small part because of the kinds of things that happen at events like this. Nancy.
I think for me, New Haven stopped being home because I lost a lot of elders, and so I was kind of in a bit of a limbo. So coming to San Francisco was like, man, it was culture shock. So it took me a minute to figure out what San Francisco was, but I think that I spent most of my time like a fly on the wall, like observing what was going on, because I come from a predominantly black, everything was black back in New Haven. So it was very different being here, and I think that my pencil and a piece of paper was home. As long as I had that, I was good. And I drew my way through not knowing what San Francisco was, so I was a messenger, so I drew pictures of me being a messenger with big cabs and all these hills that, you know what I mean? So so I drew my way through that whole experience. So I think that kind of made me feel at home when I started doing that. Yeah.
How are we on time? 2 minutes? Oh, 2 minutes. Okay. So I love all of your works, and they're beautiful and just imaginative, and I always, because I can barely draw a stick figure, so I'm always like, wow, how do they do that? And I know that's a gift. Where do you see them own magic in your work or creativity, or if magic is not the right word, the power? And you can define magic power however you want it.
Well, I would say that it's always my hope, always my fantasy, and always what people hear from me is that I want my work to be healing. And I think about that a lot. And so there's a lot of intention going into that, like all of the elements of it, like what would it be like if this could be healing, and for someone or somehow when they observe it or touch it or see it, and how and just that intention, I think of that, and I will say there are two people here who allowed me for many years to be in the Carnival parade and be part of a West African contingent. And do you know, I'm speaking of Hogan and Judah, do you know that they allowed me to be a medicine man, like once a year? And Hogan here would choose outfits for me to wear. And it was things that he had in his shop that are too special to sell. But he would allow me to wear them. And I have to say that I was just giddy, you know. I thought, ooh, I get to, and it was very serious, but I get to pretend in a way, but to be, to embody that just once a year. And there was something about that. As we were talking about me possibly joining them, for years they asked and I didn't do it. And they're trying to say, what would you do? Like, I didn't have the personality, they said, to be like a warrior. There were warriors people who embodied warriors. There were people who danced the masks. And they were saying that, yeah, I don't know. And then, I don't remember, it was Hogan or Judah, I think it was Judah who said that, well, you know, we do have a few medicine men. And then Hogan said, yes. He said that you're a peaceful brother and you're going to be a medicine man. And so, I don't know, a lot of my friends had to put up with me, like embodying, wanting to be medicine man, find ways to be that in everyday life. But those experiences were extraordinary. But I always had thought about, like, what is it like to make things that are healing? And that's what I think about with the work. So.
I guess for me, my answer would be two things. One is I love to put work up and watch people see themselves in the work or see someone they know, and the capacity to reflect back to people their reality, that kind of way of saying, I see you. And, that to me is really special. And, I feel a sense of accountability. Most of my work that I do for myself, as opposed to work for clients, is Black people. And I feel very accountable to my Black community. I want my community to look at that and say, yeah, okay, this works. And then the other thing is there's something really, the wonderful thing about art is it gives people a chance to, you walk people through how you see the world. And if you see people, if you see your community and kind of love your community unconditionally and take everyone at face value and see value in portraying the fullness of the diversity of who Black people are, then when they look at your work, they have to experience that as well. And that, to me, is the real kind of magic or alchemy of particularly portrait-based work that but also if you draw neighborhoods. I know people who do Black neighborhoods, but when you draw one, for me, that's the thing. People, for a moment, have to inhabit my kind of unconditional love for Black people and Black community. And that is, that's very special to me, yeah.
So reflection, healing.
Yeah. I would agree with that. When I'm drawing, it's a magical, giggly moment for me. When I'm sitting there and as I'm drawing, faces are coming into being. But the next round of magic comes exactly when other people see it and they're giggling or laughing or looking at it like wow. So that's not necessarily, that part I don't necessarily expect. Because I know I had fun doing it,
Yeah.
but the fact that I create something that someone else enjoys is like a whole other thing. You know what I mean?
So the fact that people absorb that energy
Yeah.
that you put into the work.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do questions now, Jerry, or okay? Yeah, I was like, this went by so fast. You wanna have somebody wanna hand the mic around, or? Oh, okay, maybe it's probably might be too short.
I think it's gonna reach too far.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, I'll just repeat for people watching, for my mama watching. Yeah, I guess she can see me because she ain't. Don't encourage her because she will text me a question to ask. Does anyone have a question or a comment that they wanted to? Because if not, I'll ask another question. Yes.
So, living in the world that we live in now, well, I have two questions actually.
Okay.
But living in the world that we are in right now, where so many people are moving, we have so many ways to communicate, but people lose track of people. Mm-hmm. And they don't really have a reason to connect. Like you move to another location, and then sometimes you just lose all of that. What power or what really made this happen, given the fact that, say, Michael moved away, everybody's in these different places. What was it that really brought this together? Like, what keeps that connection? That's my first question. Second question, for Nancy Cato, where'd you get those shoes? Those are some bad shoes. I gotta ask you seriously. Those are my two questions.
So I don't know, Jerry, should you answer that question, or as far as like bringing us together and connection, especially in an era? I mean, it's funny. I was talking to my Uber driver about that. Like I was like, since COVID, there's people like I haven't seen, because they moved, or just they might have been ill, or just people kind of just not disappeared, but kind of fell off because some of the spaces that I used to go to, they don't exist. And that's part of, COVID, gentrification, all that stuff. But I don't know who wants to, what Jerry doesn't want to answer. But I know, I was like, you're the one that brought us here. You don't have to answer about her shoes.
I could say.
Go ahead.
I think just Ajuan, we've been in so many different shows, and you've been inspirational, very much inspirational. Most of the people who I know here who are artists are well off into what they do, and they've touched me quite a bit, in regards to my artistic practice. So we've been in touch through shows and things of that nature, but also like Michael has so much information about the Bay Area, and I think a lot of times I would just ask Michael about something, like Marlon Riggs, not knowing that freaking he knew Marlon Riggs, you know what I mean? And I was just, I'm over here being blown away, and I didn't know that someone that I had known for so long had been connected to someone that I felt was, so amazing. So I think it becomes intentional, like to be in contact. Like I got back in touch with Jerry, because we lost touch, but we got back in touch. You know what I'm saying? So it has to be intentional. As far, and I guess that's you too, like getting in touch with Michael, because you guys have been talking anyway. So it was intentional. So I think, does that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks.
I'll just say briefly. I think that, like what Ajuan was saying, once I experienced being here in the Bay Area, being used to being in touch with people, it was a new thing for me in a way. I mean, I was very young when I came here, but I kind of, wherever I am, I want to find some way, to keep that going. And I realized once I moved away from San Francisco in the Bay Area that there were a few things that I was taking for granted, that it's not always everywhere that is conducive to forming, especially arts community, And it becomes a reminder. And so I often say that, quite literally, I'm glad that I decided to move in an era where there is a lot of technology, and the technology is not the same as being in the room with someone, but it has been important, because I don't imagine losing touch with the community here, and in just probably a couple of 3 or 4 decades, if we had been different, we might have been harder. Have to write letters and not know if they reached the person and something like that. So,
yeah. I think you covered.
I was going to say too, like Jerry brings people together. I mean, just the events that he has at Books Inc. And so I don't, I live in the neighborhood, so I'm always at Books Inc. bouncing around and going. Like, I don't go to the bar. I go to the bookstore. That's just. I'm a writer too, so I'm always like visiting him at work, and of course I'm not, because I don't know who's watching. Of course I'm not preventing him from working, but I think too, like for me personally, I'm really good at keeping in touch with people. Like I still keep in touch with my 6th grade teacher, and she's in her 90s, and she lives in Georgia, and like I send her cards and letters, and I know she can't really write now because her age, but like I know she's getting them because they're not coming back to me. And then, like, if I don't write, then she'll send me a card. Like, she's struggling, like, where are you at? So I know she's, And for me, it's like those connections that even if people move, like, for me, those people I'm connected to, it's more than just about place. Like physical place. Going back to home. Like, I'm like, we're fellow artists, creators or whatever. So I'm just really good at staying in contact with people. So, Michael, I'm about to stay in contact with you for about 40, 50 years. So. Did anybody else have a question? Any questions or comments? And you'll get the information about Nancy's shoes, yes, later. Michael, how long are you in town for?
Just here until tomorrow night. So I'm really, really quick.
Really quick
but I'll
trip.
be back. I'm gonna make sure. I can't say when, but I'm gonna make sure I'm back this year sometime for a proper visit. So.
Okay, so get your hugs in. No questions? Do I have time for another question? Okay, so I mean, something I didn't bring up was literature, and this is the archive. So I was like, I need to bring that up. And I know there were some names we had been talking about earlier, and I just want to know if anything comes up. And we kind of talked about these people a little bit, but these, all these people I named, they have some kind of connection to the Bay. Ntozake Shange, Ishmael Reed, Jewel Gomez, Marlon T. Riggs. Any of those names. Anything that comes up for you, naming those people. It doesn't have to be all of them, it's just anything, just.
As the retired English professor, I will.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote about Ntozake Shange in my dissertation.
Oh, wow.
But and I was thinking about this over the last week because, but I thought I'll just mention Ishmael Reed first because his audacity at every turn has been, I think, important. We might not hang out if we knew each other. Although I did tell him, I went to a reading and afterwards it's like, oh, I taught reckless eyeballing in my class. And he told me I was brave. And he was right. But Ntozake Shange in particular, her work for me is very visual. And also using her skills to create a language that is Afro-diasporic, rewriting words with different capitalization, multiple languages, all the languages of the diaspora, and intertwining, as they would say, SAT words with vernacular in Portuguese, Spanish, French, and English to kind of create this notion of blackness that is way beyond the boundaries that have been left open for our space, kind of blowing that space apart. I think about Ntozake Shange's work several times a week, and I hope that, my work is informed by knowing that her art is in the world, for sure, yeah.
Beautiful. Any other ones want to add? I know you got Marlon or
Marlon Riggs. I wouldn't say that he influenced me, but I was amazed at his documentary on racism and stereotypes. And I think that when I got here, I heard a lot about Marlon Riggs, through you, but it wasn't as distinct. And so I had to go and do like my own research. And so I watched Tongues Untied. You told me some stories about Marlon. And then I watched the documentary on racism. And I think that being gay, I had this idea where we are supposed to be rooted in LGBTQ. Like we're supposed to, not supposed to, but we tend to speak in those realms, right? And so I thought that when I saw that a black gay man did this documentary on racism and stereotypes, I thought it was just a monumental tribute to black people, because it explained everything to date on how America sees us across the board. And I think that, and you could probably speak to this too, I think that a lot of times and I'm gonna say gay because that's what I didn't grow up with queer, I call myself gay, so I'm just gonna say that, but I feel like that a lot of times we don't get the credit for what we do for the black culture. And he did it, and he did it, and he was dying. So I just think that it's interesting, you go through the Castro, and there's nothing about him. These young black males who are gay, they don't know about him. And so, anyway, that's
all right. That's all right. Yeah.
He did that for us. And he made it plain. And I'm just thankful. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy. I will have to clarify. I talked to Nancy a lot about Marlon Riggs. I didn't really know him such. I talked with him. I'd been in the same room with him. I don't want to say that I knew him, but I felt like I knew his work, and that's the way I spoke so familiarly about him, especially the film Tongues Untied. Mm-hmm. I think, like you're saying, like his courage. I think his courage in that film, if some of you have seen it, some of you know it very well, and some of you are hearing about it for the first time, but he covered things, he talked about things about himself and about a community of black men, black gay men, that were not easy to talk about, not easy to confront, not even easy to hear, but they were, for me, the first time I had seen anything like that, on screen. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to see it for the first time, and walking home and thinking it's the first time I'd seen all of myself on a film. I was like 27 years old, and I thought this must be what it's like to go to a film and see your entire self. Mm-hmm. And it was a big deal. Yeah. And so that, I don't know how he did it, but having the courage to do that and the courage to expose himself in the film, it was, I don't think I've really ever been that connected, I think, ever to another film. Yeah. And that was something.
And you can see those films. I've seen them on YouTube. So you can see, if you haven't seen his work, they are on YouTube. I don't know where else you can access them to as well. Probably, I'm sure libraries or something.
Criterion has them, actually.
Criterion, okay.
His newsreel. It's on Canopy.
It's on what?
Canopy.
Oh, it's on Canopy. Okay, yeah, and the Canopy's free. That's through the library. So, and speaking just about being seen, and that's why, we have these events, and thank you to Jerry too as well, because, this to just lift up, lift you up and lift up other artists who have paved the way and they don't, get their credit. And I know too, I've heard as far as like, Black, gay, queer artists in the Bay Area don't always get seen and credit, and what's that saying? They love our style but not our blues or something like that, right? So. So just lifting up other folks. Last question is, we were talking about this archive and the work that Jerry's doing. Are there any artists that you feel should be in this archive? Writers, filmmakers, storytellers. Anything else? Any
You
other?
said filmmakers also? Or is it just writers?
He said filmmakers, storytellers.
Well, I have a list.
You have a list? Okay. Okay.
Part of the magic of the archive is that we are reaching out to folks who have material. And speak of Marlon Briggs, there is a super friend that I know who was with him just before he passed away, and has all this amazing content and love that we're going to reach out to her and bring into the archive. So no piece of history is wasted. Nothing is taken lightly. So I have a list of some names here. So for instance, Essex Hempel, Joel Brana Bernard, Marvin K. White, Thomas Simpson needs to be in here. Marcy Blackman, remember Marcy Blackman? So we're working on it. It's going to be fun. I want to just share a picture. I was going to show at the beginning. This is Michael Ross when I first met him, and Marvin K. White.
Marvin, look at Marvin's face.
1992, yeah, maybe very early. And here's Michael. Well, wait, speaking of Michael, I have all of your letters. I know he writes letters. And speaking of trying to keep in touch and all the minutiae of like how to reach out to people who moved away. No, he has got it down. I mean, he writes letters and postcards and doesn't miss a beat. So I have boxes of letters. We should do a whole collection of Michael Ross letters.
Michael Ross is like, I wasn't trying to do all that, right? He's like, put your business out. He's like, don't put my business out there like that. Right?
Maybe 6 years ago, he didn't have an email. Hello, he didn't have an email. Okay, come on.
It's a wow.
Let me get started. So we get in touch, and hosting public events, author appearances in bookstores is essential. Since the election, bookstores are, I consider, the last village that we consider left. People come together, they want to hear that laughter, they want to brush shoulders next to somebody and say, what are you reading? It's like the record stores back in the day. Or art gallery, or art archives. It's happening. It's beginning to begin again. People are asking, do you sell stamps at the bookstore? Yes. No. But yes. but people are beginning to jot down and want to put crumbs on the trail for their connection and say hello to people and remember the moments. So it's happening again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I still write letters, so.
Send me a letter.
I'll send you a, okay, I could drop it off at your place, but I still write letters too, so, I mean, I think too, going back where we are here, in this home, and it ain't, y'all know growing up ain't nothing more powerful in the house than that kitchen table.
Right.
That kitchen table. The kitchen table, just call people up just to gather and talk and like have some drinks and some snacks and some hot sauce and chicken and just you made a whole meal, some rolls, okay, whatever. But like even just doing like old school just like that and getting together, like play some cards and just chit chat, so yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody.
Jeneé has her poetry,
I just bought them, and then today I thought I'd wear them.